2022 Honda Civic SI is here. Welcome to the channel. After a long wait, we have the new Honda Civic SI. And I'm going to touch on the exterior first, because if for any reason you think this car looks familiar, or maybe you've seen it before, that's because you have. This is the same car that we have seen when Honda debuted the Civic prototype back in November of last year. Now, they tricked us by removing the SI badges during that reveal, but all along hiding the SI right under our noses. So if while ordering your new Honda Civic, you were wondering why you couldn't get the orange paint or those nice 5-spoke black wheels, this is why. Because that paint and wheels are exclusive to the SI model. Now, that being said, differentiating the SI from the base model Civic, you will get a unique grille. LED headlights and taillights are standard, and the SI will get a front and rear spoiler in gloss black. Now, the front spoiler isn't quite as predominant as the rear. It gives us a little bit of sporty touch, while the rear deck spoiler does stand out a little bit more. Definitely, I like the flare without being over dramatic, and it really reflects off that orange paint. Now, I'm a huge fan of those 18-inch matte black wheels. Very fun, unique design. It actually looks like something that you would probably buy in the aftermarket, but yet Honda's going to give it to you right from the factory. Now, those wheels will be wrapped in the 235/40/18 all-season tire, but you will have the option for performance summer tires. Overall, the styling difference between the Civic SI and the base model is, well, minimal at best, but it's still enough to differentiate if you know what you're looking at. And the rear is what's going to be the most predominant between the spoiler and that new dual exhaust system. Now, that exhaust system will improve airflow by 27%. That's pretty significant. And the design of the exhaust system is very unique as well, as the tailpipes will create a loop right before exiting the rear bumper, which Honda says greatly improves the sound. And from what I've heard, I have to agree with them. I definitely want your comments down below on that one. Now, like all other Honda Civic SIs, the limited front differential is standard. As far as suspension is concerned, front and rear compliance bushings will be stiffer and taking right from the Type R model. The steering rack also gets stiffer torsion bar connected to it, which will greatly improve the steering feel. Now, many of the other suspension bushings from the Type R are going to be used in the Civic SI, making them much stiffer, increasing the handling capabilities, which are already dramatically improved thanks to the new platform. Now, the springs on the SI are 8% stiffer up front and 54% stiffer in the rear over the base model Civic. The brake rotors in the front measure 23.1 up front and 11.1 in the rear. Now, with all these improvements, Honda is claiming this is going to be the best handling SI they've ever produced. And with many of their components being used from the Type R, I have very little reason to doubt that. Now, let's talk about engine and performance. The new SI will carry over the 1.5-liter turbo 4-cylinder, but this one will have VTEC. And it will be mated with the 6-speed manual transmission only, and will get a single mass flywheel, which is 26% lighter than the dual mass unit used in the previous generation. That alone makes me think that this is going to rev a lot quicker, a lot happier, and a lot easier, just giving it a much more fun drive feel. Now, the part that might disappoint you is the fact that the new SI has 200 horsepower, which is 5 less than the previous generation. 192 pound-feet of torque. Now, horsepower comes in at 6,000 RPMs with a red line of 6,500, while that 192 pound-feet of torque comes in at 1,800 RPMs, which is 300 RPMs earlier than the last generation, but will carry that 192 pound-feet of torque all the way to 5,000 RPM. Now, with that torque kicking in a lot sooner and carrying through the RPM band a lot longer, it should produce a lot more fun to drive experience, especially around town, coming in and out of corners, and all the fun back roads that you have in your neighborhood. Now, the big questionable part is going to be the 0 to 60 times, because Honda has not released that yet. But with 5 less horsepower and a platform that weighs a little more than the previous, it makes me wonder, is this going to be the same 0 to 60 thanks to the increase in torque, or is this going to be slower due to the extra weight? This is something I honestly expected a little bit more horsepower from. I was hoping to be somewhere around 215, 220 maybe. That would have been a perfect upgrade for this platform. Obviously, Honda didn't think so, but it is what it is. We have 200 horsepower. I want to know what your thoughts are down below. I think with all the other competitors out there, this is an area where Honda had a perfect opportunity to up the game, to up the horsepower rating, and take on the competitors, especially in that horsepower department. Now, moving on from there, we're going to go to the interior of the car, where you get your typical SI treatment. Most of the difference you're going to see is from the red stitching and the unique SI seats. The seats are very much familiar as with the previous generation. The dash has colored trim, and of course you see the 6-speed manual gear selector. Now, the shifter in the Civic SI has a 10% shorter throw than the previous year, and it says that Honda has improved the shifting feel. Now, Honda's already had really good shifters from the factory, so any improvements they can make on top of that are just going to be overly impressive. Now, inside the digital gauge cluster, you will find a performance meter. You'll be able to test 0 to 60, lateral times, and things like that. That's also where you're also going to be able to switch your drive modes, which the SI has 3 of: normal, sport, and performance. Overall, the interior of the Civic SI looks very comfortable yet classy at the same time. You get all the red stitching and accents on top of the class that you get from the base model. Now, speaking of performance, this is something, again, we're going to have to wait to get numbers on. Now, I know this is very important for many of us, so we're going to be on our pins and needles until we get that information. But as soon as we do, trust me, I will get it out to you. But I want your thoughts down below. In the meantime, what do you think of the new Civic SI? Does it meet your expectations? Did you even realize that you saw it before? Make sure you drop a like on the video for me. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I'm Kevin, and I'll catch you in the next upload.